Hello everyone, welcome back. It's the Louis Vuitton Princess. Thanks for joining me. And I am here today filming another video for you guys. So I filmed my comparison video of the Louis Vuitton Chrissy and the Louis Vuitton Boulogne. If you're interested in that, check out my channel. But I am going to be filming a video discussing my love-hate relationship with none other than the Louis Vuitton Artsy. So let's dive right into it. My relationship with the Artsy is very much so, it's a love-hate. And it's that way for a lot of reasons. The Artsy is undeniably a beautiful bag. That's just, it goes without question. It's a beautiful bag. It's a classic Louis Vuitton piece. You know, the Artsy is very much so up there with the Speedy in terms of it's one of those bags that if you're someone who's going to collect Louis Vuitton, you kind of have to have one. It is a collection essential. So it's tough. When I first got into Louis Vuitton back in what would have probably been around like 2014, 2015, even back then the Artsy had a price point of I think around $1,700, $1,800. It has always been a higher priced bag. I have not even checked to see what they sell for at this point. There's a new model Artsy. I've not even checked to see what the newer versions sell for, but given how Louis Vuitton prices everything else, I'm sure it's probably well over $2,000 at this point. And I would never pay $2,000 for an Artsy. So this is actually my second Louis Vuitton Artsy. I had one before this. So this one is actually in stunning condition. For one, you can see the braiding on the handle is super light and super well intact. The same thing here with the little keychain, very bright vachetta leather, and the hardware is all extremely shiny. There's pretty much no wear on this bag at all. It's basically like new. But this is my second Artsy. So I purchased a Louis Vuitton Artsy quite a few years ago now, probably like I'd say 3 or 4 years ago. I purchased one off of Poshmark for $700, and people always knew that was kind of my stance on the Artsy. I would never pay full price for one. I never was willing to pay over $1,000 for one, but if I was able to find one under $1,000, I would get it. So that's what I did. That Artsy was not in nearly as good of condition as this Artsy. Overall, it was a beautiful bag. The handle was a lot darker, had a lot more wear. The bag did not have any major cracking issues because, as you guys know, the Artsy is prone to, well, if you didn't know, now you know, the Artsy is prone to major cracking issues. That Artsy had what I called sort of micro cracks, meaning very, very tiny cracks around the perimeter of the bag, but they were not fully developed cracks, meaning when you have fully developed cracks, the crack is going to go all the way through to the underside of the canvas. So they were not fully developed cracks. That Artsy also did not have any cracking on the corners. Sometimes you will see with the Artsys, the corners will straight up just fall off. I'm going to dive into more about the defects of the Artsy, but I sort of wanted to explain the difference between my first Artsy and my second Artsy and how I even ended up with a second Artsy. So if I didn't mention, this is the Artsy MM. The Artsy comes in, I actually don't know if the Artsy comes in 3 sizes. I don't think it does. The Artsy comes in an MM and a GM. I don't think there's a PM size for the Artsy. So this is the Artsy MM. So there is one size above this one. The Artsy GM is huge. I tried it on in a store and I felt like it was huge. The same way I feel about the Neverfull GM, and I feel like that's just absolutely humongous. But anyways, so I ended up with a second Artsy because I did a partial trade with a client I was sourcing an item for, and I was like, hey, like, why don't we do a partial trade? Like, you pay me this much, I'll source the item for you and trade me the Artsy. So that's how I ended up with my second Artsy here, and as you can see, that is why it's in such beautiful condition, because she pretty much never used it. And I also sold my original Artsy and made some money off of that too. So very lucky I was able to sort of make this kind of like upgrade to a nice new Artsy. I think she paid full price for this. The price tag was in the bag when I got it from her. It was $19.60, I believe, something like that. So again, over the 2000 mark, and even that I think is from a couple years ago. But yeah. So I have a love-hate relationship with the Artsy. And now I'm going to kind of start to talk about why. The first reason I have a love and hate relationship with the Artsy is, as beautiful as it is, it's not giving $2,000. And that's kind of my feeling with a lot of Louis Vuitton bags. Like, it's not giving $2K. Like, the Artsy is still a pretty simple bag, you know? It's a lot of canvas, no leather. You know, these sort of folds make it, I guess, look a little bit more intricate when you see people carrying them from the front. There's not a lot to the bag itself. It's not very intricate. And so that for me just doesn't really give 2K. The bag is incredibly defective. Myself and very few other people talked about the defects of this bag many years ago. And everybody responded with like, you guys are haters, you just can't afford it, da 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 da. Well, a couple years after that, Louis Vuitton actually did a recall themselves on the Artsy, which is very uncommon. They don't like to admit fault very often. And so then became the time of a lot of people were taking their Artsies back for store credit because they did admit that there were defaults. So some of the major issues to look out with on the Louis Vuitton Artsy are the following. Some of the canvases are defective. So, sorry, that was my foot on my table. A lot of the canvases are sort of defective, and basically what that means is you'll see a lot of the Artsies where the monogram print has faded. This one is sort of a controversial defect because there are some people who take their bags to their essays and they have that issue. It'll sort of look like a white, flaky peeling, and then the monogram peels off. Some people have taken that to their essays and said that there was an issue, and some essays have said that was normal wear and tear. Some essays have said, oh, well, it must have been something that you did. It is actually a defect. Yeah. I have Louis Vuitton bags made out of canvas that go back to 1994, and plenty of them have been rubbed, carried, cleaned, and more stuff, and I've never seen the canvas, the monogram print on the canvas flake off. Never seen that. So there was just like a batch of Artsies that were made at some point. This is very common on some of these like 2010s hobos. There were quite a few of the 2010s era hobos that had this issue. So there must have been something that they were doing with their canvas production at that time where the QA was just not giving what it needed to give. So this is kind of another question that a lot of people have is, when do I feel like Louis Vuitton quality started to really decline? And the answer is the 2010s. That's when. I feel like Louis Vuitton quality really started to decline once you kind of got into that 2012, 2013 time frame. I feel like is when things really started to go downhill. So that's one of the first big defects to the Artsy. One of the second defects to the Artsy that you can encounter is very bad cracking. It is notoriously known for cracking, predominantly around this top perimeter here. Yes, go ahead and run and grab your Artsy right now and look at it. Go ahead and do it, because yeah. This top area across here is very prone to cracking. So on the newer model Artsies, they have started to put a vachetta trimming around this. I don't even know if they still sell the new model Artsies, but they've put a very thin strip of vachetta trim up here to try and curb that issue. I remember when they first put that design out, I think I was talking to Aaliyah from Leah's Luxuries, and we were both talking about how that design really made no sense, and here's why. The design of having the vachetta trim across the top is supposed to prevent cracking. It doesn't actually prevent cracking, just because of how the bag is designed. And the handle for the Artsy is very short, so oftentimes when you wear it, where is the top of the bag gonna fall? It's gonna fall right in your armpit. So if you're having a vachetta strip across the top, and you're just gonna have a piece of vachetta that's living in your armpit, obviously that doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? Because it's probably over time gonna get very dark, and I honestly would even go as far as to say nasty, because vachetta absorbs oil. So any oils and sweat and dirtiness and nastiness, and again, I'm not trying to call anybody out because we're all human. Everybody sweats. That's part of being humans. Your underarms are a part of your body that works to detox. So that means any of those icky things that are in your body that your underarms are trying to expel are just going to end up getting absorbed into the vachetta leather at the top of your artsy. So they really felt like they were doing something when they made that modification, but they really weren't doing anything at all, besides, in my opinion, making the problem worse. So anyways, that was a side rant, but important information. So this is where the cracking is very prone on the artsy on the top. You can also see it on the inside if the cracks have not gone all the way through the inner top perimeter. And even sometimes there will be cracking at the bottom of the inner perimeter here. So lots of areas where cracking is prone on the artsy. Not good. So the other big defect that you commonly will see with the Louis Vuitton Artsies is on the corners. When they started making these making these monogram canvas bags with very sharp corners in the sort of 2000s area or 2010s area, clearly they weren't paying their material scientist enough. Because the corners experience a lot of wear with this bag style. I have seen people whose corners on their artsies have straight up just fallen off. Like there was just canvas missing on this whole area. It was just gone. And that's just sort of unacceptable to me for a bag that is over $2,000. That's absolutely ridiculous. So lots of defects with the artsy. I have a very love-hate relationship with it. It is a poorly designed bag, and I've talked about this extensively in a lot of my videos because a lot of people ask, so why does the artsy crack so badly? And that's a very good question, and the reasoning is strictly because of how the bag is designed. So for people who are new here, you might not know, but my background is actually in engineering, so let's talk about it. Because of how the artsy is designed, you have this very simple sort of hobo sack thing going here. And the handle, very sturdy, very thick handle, is attached at these two positions here on either side. The weight of the bag is distributed around these rings. Now these rings can distribute quite a bit of the weight. The issue is a lot of times people carry a lot of stuff in the artsy. So when you're carrying a ton of stuff in your artsy and the bag is getting sort of pulled down, because people carry a lot of stuff, it's getting pulled downward. That creates a lot of stress and strain in these sort of rings here where the handle is connected. And over time, that stress and that strain that's getting pulled onto the bag, as you can see how it's pulling in through here, it's pulling on all sides of the canvas. It eventually is going to get manifested and transferred up to this top perimeter. That is why the artsies crack so badly. So one of the ways that you can kind of mitigate the damage to your artsies aging is by not carrying too much stuff. Now again, I'm not saying that's going to completely stop it from cracking because it is a defect, but that is one of the things that definitely contributes to how badly people's artsies crack. If you do not use them a ton and you do not weigh them down, you will probably have better odds of success. Now, one of the features of the artsy that I actually do like, a couple things, is I think the braided handle is very pretty. I think it's very unique. And I also like that the artsy sort of has these feet thing going for it. I do like that. I do really like feet and the cross stitching. So there are a couple features that I do like about the artsy. Not to mention, I do really like the interior of the artsy. There are a lot of pockets. There is a main zipper pocket in the back. There are some bigger pockets, smaller pockets, pockets on both sides. So the artsy is very well organized and laid out, and I do really like that about this bag. Would I recommend buying an artsy as someone who has owned two of them? I would, but I would just say do not pay $2,000. Probably don't even go over the $1,000 mark. just sort of like how I did, because in my opinion, they are not worth it. They are not worth $2,000. I would say it's a bag that's worth $1,000 if the defects don't show. But you don't want to end up paying over $1,000 for a bag that's going to wind up being super defective. That's just my take. Again, it's a bag that I love. I think it's an absolutely beautiful style. I think it's very much so quintessential Louis Vuitton. And if you're somebody who's going to get into collecting Louis Vuitton, it's definitely a bag that you should have. It is one of Louis Vuitton's most popular styles, and for very good reasons. It's very beautiful, but the beauty comes at a price, a literal price, as in the price point for the bag. Even on the resale market, they're high, and the price of you might have some defects that you were not prepared for that could possibly ruin the functionality of your bag. So that is my take on my love-hate relationship with the Louis Vuitton Artsy MM and GM, really just the Artsy as a style. I hope you learned something from this video, and again, I don't intend to be just purely negative. I just hope to try to give you an honest opinion on the pros and cons of owning this bag, and knowing that if you make the decision to purchase this bag, what types of things you might have to be on the lookout for. So as always, if you're interested in seeing more of my content, feel free to check my page out on Instagram, the Louis Vuitton Princess. If you would like to shop, source, and consign with me, feel free to check out Shop LV Princess on Instagram, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.